Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Legends of Tomorrow. I will probably go as far as saying I think definitely this season so far, it's only been like 3 episodes, but I will go as far as saying that this is without a doubt probably, if not the one of my favorite episodes of Legends in general across both seasons so far. For one, you put it in a setting that I love. You put it in Japan. You got ninjas. You got samurais. It's like, what else is there not to love? That's amazing. It's like you took everything I love and you put it in one place. You put superheroes and samurais and ninjas in one thing, and it's just like, it's like this episode was written for me. It was like it was made for me, and I love everyone that has something to do with this, with just a show, the episode, everything. I love them so much because of it. Just, it's so good. For one, I brought it up last time because I've already stated it before, not that informative about DC Comics. So I was very interested to find out, also, side note, I think I called him Henry last episode. Maybe I'm completely remembering that wrong, but I swear I kept calling him Henry last time. I don't know. Do let me know in the comments down below if that it turns out to be the case. But Nate, Commander Steele's grandson, ended up getting superpowers because of the serum that Ray had tampered with. It was supposed to kind of increase Ray's strength and everything, but it ended up turning turning Nate into actual Steel. Which he's like, oh, what name should I go by now? Citizen Steel, which was kind of interesting because from what the little bit I looked up about Commander Steel, like a couple of, I think I did it last week. That actually one of his other names. So I'm guessing it's like they took the alternative name that Commander Steel kind of, I guess, it's like different people take up different, the mantles of, because superheroes tend to be like, in different cases, like, end up being different people assuming a different identity. So maybe one of the people in the comic books who eventually took on the role of Commander Steel changed the name to Citizen Steel. So maybe that's why it's different like that. Kind of like, I guess the best example is like Zoom and Reverse Flash. Depending on what you look at, some cases it seems like they may be two separate people. In a lot of cases, it seems like they are the same person because his name's Eobard Zoom Thawne in some cases. But it's like you look at the Flash TV show, they made Eobard and Hunter Zolomon two separate people. So I think it's just depending on what version of the character you come across. So nevertheless, I'm going well off overboard. First of all, if I had to talk about anything, let's talk about freaking action, just how action-packed and amazing this episode was. For one, you always got to give up to Sarah, because Sarah's always got, like, the best fights. She killed it. Literally, when she was killing those samurais, like taking their swords, slashing them up with it, ended up fighting with the double swords. Didn't end there. Then you got Vixen showing up and did her, and like she takes one sword and Sarah keeps one, and then just like taking on the rest of those dudes. And then that final showdown with that samurai dude, who was just that typical like swordsman thing where it's like they run past each other and slash, and then it pauses and then one of them drops dead. She did that they did that, and I was like, ooh, it's like, dude, like I said, it was like a dream come true. It was so freaking cool. And it's like, Sarah, being who she is, kind of used her second knife to kind of kill him, and I was just like, that was just sick, dude. And it's not just her. Gotta give it up to Mick, too, fighting ninjas, which he kept bringing up in the episode, being like, he was talking to Vixen, being like, yo, ninjas are real. She's like, ninjas aren't real. He's like, yeah, there's a real-life ninja Chuck Norris. She's like, who's Chuck Norris? And I'm the idiot for not, and because you don't know who Chuck Norris is. And he kept bringing up the fact that ninjas are real, but no one believed him. And then, like, the moment ninjas attack him, he's like, hey, guys, I don't want to hurt you or kill you. I actually really like you guys. Ended up fighting them. And for whatever a weird, odd reason, when he came to help out Sarah and Vixen, he was dressed as one. I don't, like, other than the fact is he loves ninjas, which I understand that a lot. I understand, me and Rory, yeah, because that's actually Mick's name, isn't it? Nevertheless, I'm just going to keep referring to it as Mick. I think that is his name too, but I'm just going to, me and Mick click on that. So it's just like, I guess he did it just to do it. So that was kind of interesting. I did love the conversation he had later on in the episode with both Ray and Nate being like, what are you two laughing about? You lost your armor. the food here sucks, and I don't have any proof that ninjas exist. This just sucked. But not even just them, you also had Ray. Like, Ray kind of like, he's still dealing with the whole, like, oh, I'm not a superhero thing. It's like, dude, shut up. I mean, for one, you still got your mind. Two, you're still pretty badass. I mean, like, the fact that you were able to, like, you were handcuffed and you were chained up, and you were able to take down the guards and escape. It's like, yo, dude, that's impressive. Plus, he got a sword and armor, and he ended up going up against a guy that took his suit, and he handled himself pretty well. Like, he just used his brain. He knew where to strike to kind of, slowly kind of break the suit down so it's not as effective. I love the conversation he had with Masako's dad, and he basically told the story of his son, and then through it all, Ray was like, yeah, I get it. He's like, no, I know where you're going. He's like, I can defeat the Shogun without armor. And then Masako's dad like, are you stupid? No. You go at him with no armor, he'll kill you in seconds. He's like, follow me, and gave him the sword and armor. So I really like that. It is kind of sad that Ray had to destroy his armor because at the same time, like, we have Nate kind of not really being able to control his powers. Because, like, for the first time in his life, he brought it up. He's like, I never dreamed of being a superhero. I have superpowers, and I just can't use them. Because it's like he always wanted to do something special, kind of save the world, especially, considering who his grandfather is. That inspired, not just sure, I know. He even said himself that it inspired him. And so he just wanted... he wants to help out because he always lived his life as a hemophiliac. So he always had the fear of dying, which it seems like the serum has completely cured him of that. Because I was worried about that when the guy stabbed him. I'm like, isn't that really bad? Because your blood's not going to clot now. But apparently it did. So, and he brought it up. He's like, oh, I guess that's kind of dealt with because of the whole serum. So I was like, oh, that works out for you. So even if you're not all steeled up, the fact is that you won't immediately die. So that's a plus. That's a good thing. So. And since I am talking about, I brought it up earlier, but it's like, do let me know if you are it's something I'm going to end up looking up, but if you end up, like, leaving a comment before I end up looking it up, which I highly doubt you will, but you never know, just to kind of have the conversation going. Is that, like, what Commander Steel is like in the comic books? Like, because for the little bit I looked up, it seemed like Commander Steel was more so just kind of like how he was with the JSA. There, maybe eventually down the road, there was a situation in the comic book where there is a Nate, who is the grandson of Commander Sisson, who actually has powers, who's more, I guess he'd be technically classified as a meta, maybe? I don't know. I really don't know how they refer to people who kind of get their powers by other means, like, because it's not magic, it is science. So I guess he would technically fall into the category of a metahuman, I guess. But the fact of the matter is, it's like they both have such kind of little confidence and stuff. In particular, Ray, because it's like, even though he's proved to himself to be a hero, like, it's not just brawn, and the fact is it's your armor. It's like, this episode also shows that, when the time comes, you can kick some serious ass even without your armor. It's like, this is kind of the first episode to kind of really show that. I mean, he's shown other cases of just being like, he's a tough, tough son of a gun and can handle himself, but this really pushes it. It's like, put a weapon in your hand. You're very deadly, dude. You can handle yourself pretty well. Like I said, it's just a situation of like, you got to remember what your strength is, and that's your mind. And I kind of didn't really talk about it, but I love the fact is that why Vixen is on the ship. I thought she was coming along with them willingly. Had no idea it was going to be like, oh, she snuck aboard because, it never clicked on my brain last episode as like, oh, time travelers. Like, the moment he's like, time traveler, that's Rex's last word. So I assumed, I was like, okay, so she's going to go with them to try and track down the killer. It's like, oh yeah, idiot. They're literally the only time travelers that she knows. So obviously she's going to think one of them is behind it. So she starts going around the ship and stealthily knocking everyone out, which is what kind of started the whole ninja conversation to begin with, which at the end of the episode, she was really nice and kind of gave a shuriken to Mick. It's being like, okay, that's your proof that ninja exists. So it's going to be interesting seeing their relationship in the future, because she initially doesn't like Mick because she looks at him and it's like, oh, you're a killer and a thief. I mean, because that's why she went after him first. Like, that's why he was like her main target. She's like, he's a killer, he's a thief, so obviously it had to be him. And he's like, because she's asking like, why'd you kill him? It's like, you have to be a little specific. I've killed a lot of people over, you got to, narrow it down as like who you're talking about specifically. And they kind of started duking it out a little bit. So is it me, or are they really kicked up, like, showing, like, in general, just that, like, melee combat? They've really kicked it up this season, in my opinion, especially Mick, because I feel like you would never really see him do that much, like, melee combat the last season, but it's like, yo, this season they kicked it up, especially in this episode. You've seen him fighting hand to hand and like holding his own pretty well. So even against Vixen until start kicking up her powers. But the circumstances, it's like, oh no, like the fact is that she's there because like obviously her reason for to go obviously is because of Rex. She wants to find his killer and stop them. Kind of brought up the fact is, why don't we go back in time to stop the killer? But then Sarah, time travel things. I mean, really didn't even bring up the whole paradox situation, because I guess it's like, why complicate things? It's like, well, even if we go back and save Rex, who's to say the killer won't go back in time even further and stop? It's just kind of an endless cycle. So let's track them down another way, and then we can kind of reverse this whole situation. So it's kind of interesting. Not necessarily the circumstances I thought she was going to join the team under, but still, nevertheless. You end up also finding out a little bit more about her. I kind of figured this as much because of the whole situation where we kind of see Vixen in present day. So I was like, she kind of brought it up too. Well, I mean, I felt like the whole Justice Society works like that anyway, which I brought that up, but now that I'm thinking about it, if that was the case, I guess you'd argue it's like, well, where are the JSA in present day? But then it's kind of like, well, maybe something happened down the road where some of the people who ended up taking the mantles up later kind of didn't follow through, or maybe it's just because they're in a different place. It's kind of the same thing of like, well, as we know, Superman and Supergirl don't exist on this Earth, because we're not going to refer to it as Earth 1, because it's like, we should, just because from TV viewership purposes, it's Earth 1, but because every other Earth is kind of like, no, we're Earth 1, you guys are Earth X, Y, Z, whatever. So, but the thing is, it's like, you never hear about other superheroes. The only other superhero you really hear about is, well, obviously Vixen and Flash, just because of just the CW connection and everything, but it's like, there are other heroes out there, but you just don't hear about them, because that was always a thing. I was like, how can all these superhero things be happening? And then like, it's like, oh, but you never hear about Superman. But it's kind of explained, because the fact is, well, Superman doesn't exist in this world. But that's the thing, like, does that mean the JSA doesn't exist later on in the time? Like, did they not pass down the mantle? Because to my understanding, I thought that's how it worked. I mean, and getting back to my main point, because I know I'm just kind of going on a tangent here, was the fact is that Vixen whole power thing is like a mantle. Like, she got it from her mom, who got it from her mom, and that got passed down to the Vixen that we know in 2016, I think, to an extent. Oh, no, she might not be blood related. Because I still yet to watch the Vixen cartoon. I need to. So who's to say, like she could be non-related to Vixen, and it's just like she happened to get the amulet by accident. Well, maybe it could be like, maybe she's not a direct descendant. Well, she is a direct descendant, but maybe it's like, she was orphaned as a kid and grew up in a foster care and just happened to find a talisman. It's not like it was necessarily passed down to her. She just kind of found it. It's found its way into her life and she accepted it. Most likely not the case, but totally could be. So, we found out a little bit more. Basically, she's from a particular island. Basically, a whole, passing down the totems, that basically there's 5 of them. Which I'm surprised she didn't, Sarah being the way she is about the whole, dark situation, Damien Dark situation, you would have thought she would have brought that up. Because I was curious about that. Sarah was never around when Vixen was around. Because by the time Vixen actually popped up, Sarah was already on this adventure with the Legends at that time. Yeah, definitely around that time. So, or was she still dead? I don't remember. No. She was definitely, because that was Vixen kind of showed up before, she kind of helped with the whole getting Damien arrested thing. So that was pretty soon after that he ended up killing Laurel. So it was kind of like, nah, she definitely was around with the Legends then. So, but I guess maybe in her mind she hasn't brought the two together, because I'm pretty sure she still got revenge in her heart, which it hasn't come up, but I'm sure that will kind of come up in the future. I'm just very curious, to see what. Like I said, just particularly Vixen and Mick, just the fact that they go toe and toe together. Because Vixen at the end is just kind of no, we're supposed to be looking for Rex's killer, and then Mick's oh no, we're not going to waste what? No way we're going to waste our I'm not going to do that. It's kind of a waste of time. And then she kind of looks at him, and he's like, all right, sorry, we're going to get right on that. Because he talks about the fact is that she doesn't know him, because she thinks she knows Mick a little bit well, because she's like, you pretend not to care to be a bad guy, but deep down, there's a part of you that's actually a good guy, which, I kind of see that. We kind of saw that last season with Snart and him. Because he even brought it up early in the episode. He was like, it's like, why are we going after them? It's like, it's like you're the way you are, you're a killer, you're a thief. Why are you going to help them? It's like, because I'm a part of this team and I know that those nitwits would do the same thing for me, so that's why I'm doing it for you. So it's kind of, he pretends like he doesn't care. He is a bit of a bad guy, but he does care. So that's kind of interesting. Especially, I won't go into the details in case you don't want to be spoiled, but especially when the way I'm hearing things might progress in Legends is going to be very interesting to see what Mick does when things get to what they're possibly going to get to. What I've heard is what they're going to get to, so that's going to be very interesting. But I want to see more of that back and forth between, see where their relationship kind of goes, because last season you got to really see Mick and Ray kind of bond. I want to see Vixen and Mick, just because they don't really like each other that much. Even Sarah threatening them, being like, you know what? If you two don't stop, I'm going to basically drop you off into a random point in time of my choosing together. And also, I kind of skipped over it. The whole reason why this happened is because Ray and Nate were kind of screwing around trying to test his abilities and whatnot. So that was pretty impressive. That was just kind of, it's just fun. It's just one of those things that's just like, they're their own worst enemies, because even Sarah's like, oh yeah, we're professionals. And then Vixen's like, professionals? She's like, ish, Because it's just like the whole situation started because they were screwing around. Granted, they were testing out his powers, things happened and stuff like that, but nevertheless. And final note I kind of want to bring up in the episode is the whole situation where we have Martin and Jax finding a secret message. Basically, they ended up finding a secret compartment that Rip had hidden away. Now, in this secret compartment, they ended up finding like some weapons and stuff like that. It's like, yo, all this stuff was on board. So why did Rip not tell us that this like arsenal was up here? And Stein was like, could you blame him? I'm guessing, which could be interpreted multiple ways. One is like, do you know all the dangerous people that are on this ship and what could happen? Two, it could also be like, the fact is none of us can be trusted with these weapons, because who's to say things won't kind of, turn out very badly if we end up, taking these out in the field like without really truly understanding them. That could be a possibility. But the big note is the fact is that, well, for one, there was a Lost reference. I really love that. I appreciate Jax being like, Lost, if there's one thing I learned from Lost, is you don't mess with the secret hatch. You just don't open it because it's going, because he brought up the fact is that hatch could be for the purpose of keeping someone out, or it could be for the purposes of keeping something in. But nevertheless, there was a message that was from Barry, but it's not the Barry that we know. It was Barry from 2056, 40 years into the future, and he left some kind of message that it was to Rip, and that message was not to be repeated to the rest of the team. So Stein and Jax are holding on to that message. They didn't even tell Sarah. They didn't tell anyone about it. And it's like the whole purpose was for only one person to know anyway, so they're keeping their lips tight. So, and like we still don't, as an audience, still don't know what that message was. Maybe it's connected to this whole like Eobard Thawne situation, the starting of this whole Legion of Doom thing, because we still haven't even seen where Dark plays into all this. He did kind of get into the I'm stumbling on the name for a second, the Lazarus Pit. There we go. So he's kind of like Savage in the sense of he can be anywhere throughout time, not unless you have Eobard running him throughout periods of time too. But it's like, it makes you wonder, like, what exactly are they aiming for? I'm sure for Dark, he's still trying to aim for that Genesis plan. This is probably like, his early days of trying to complete the Genesis plan. So, but what's Thawne get out of it? Because I brought it up earlier this week that I have watched the Flashpoint movie. For him, in that movie, he mentioned himself, he hates the Flash. He hates Barry so much that he would risk destroying the entire world. He would die as long as it meant Barry died with him. He hates Barry's very existence that much. So maybe for him, it's like, yo, we don't just do a Genesis to the entire world. We do a Genesis to the entire timeline. Could be the route we're going. I don't know. That's the only reason why I could feel him kind of joining up with someone else. That could be his ultimate motive. So I feel like it's got to deal with that, but we still don't know the specifics. So it's going to be interesting to find out what that's all about. But like I said, overall, just a fantastic episode. Like I said, literally, easily my favorite. This show is just so much fun. I just can't wait to see more. But that's really all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.